What is up, Exploitnation? I'm Uncle Bill from Dead Pit Radio, and tonight is the second edition of this show, which I'm hoping will become like a regular thing every Sunday from now until the end of time for some of these movies, because there's certainly enough of them. But on this particular show, we're going to be talking about grape revenge films, and this show is incredibly heavy on grape. So that's just a disclaimer for anyone who may be sensitive to grape or have a grape allergy. You probably do not want to watch this show. So you've been forewarned. There will be a lot of talk about grape because we cannot not talk about it. But this is, for all intents and purposes, a vengeance show. So in the end, everybody gets their comeuppance. So it's a happy show. But I'm not alone in this venture tonight, as I have a whole panel of people that are going to help me talk about these great grape films. Um, so first up, we have the magical, mystical one, the one who only comes about at night, and only comes about every now and then for some reason. He has risen from the grave to join us, and that is, of course, Phantasmat. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Glad to be here and talk about some great films. And just wanted to announce that Welch's Juice is actually sponsoring this stream tonight. For all the fans of the grape.
That's right. We've got an exclusive partnership with Welch's, which is amazing considering the show. But I mean, I really think that they wanted to be a part of this.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good get for the channel too, for them
Yeah,
to be
I think it'll
sponsoring.
help out money
Yeah.
wise for Steve's retirement fund. So, uh, that being said, let's introduce another member of the panel, a member of the original Radicals, which is, I mean, an amazing ECW group. Uh, the great grandson of Tom Atkins himself. It's Radkins, y'all.
What's up, everyone?
How you doing, sir?
Doing all right tonight.
Are you ready to get heavy into grape?
I am super ready to get into grape. Lots and lots and lots and lots of grape.
And finally, a person that's probably seen I Spit on Your Grave more times than any movie that I've ever seen in my entire life put together. And somebody that has an amazing show of their own, Evil Dead chick, Dana herself. How you
Hey
doing, Dana?
everybody. I'm doing good actually right now. I think I'm fighting a little bit of a bug, but I'm here and ready to talk about all things grape.
Yeah. let's let this. We got 5 movies to talk about in this show. So I think it would probably be a good idea if we go ahead and get started. Because there's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to do this in chronological order, basically. So we're going to start with the earliest film. And, well, actually, before we get started with this, let's see who all's in the chat. We got a lot of people in here already. So we've got Tater's Knob Haint. That's good that he's in here. I miss Tater's Knob Haint. He says, fondle that like button for Linda Blair, that's a good idea. Because she's having a hard time in this show. Her sister's going through a lot. Manny Gatillo, he's in here. Super Batman Nerd's in here. It's good to see you, sir. Pred's in here. Jackson Jack, X-Ray Punch, Bog Zombie, Business of Fear, the Irish Michael Myers. Oh shit. He's gonna fight us like Conor McGregor here.
He's going to do a jig while he stabs us.
That's right. Vanderhoff Rules. Lucio Inferno. This is a good question. Why is Steve not a part of this? And the answer is simple. It's 10 o'clock. And that's 5 hours past Steve's bedtime. So
Yeah, he's been asleep a while now.
yeah. Rat Hammer's in here. And Mike Barrett, as well as Punisher Batman fan. What isn't working, Stuntman? Lord. There's probably something not working. If you're talking about, let's see, there was something about, I think Twitch is fucked up. Yeah, the title is invalid, and that makes me wonder, like, if maybe grape is the way that we should have went on the title.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Twitch, yeah.
but we're not real not real fan heavy on Twitch anyway, so I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, I want to hear back from Mark here. StreamYard's not working. Are you trying to get on here, Mark?
I think he is. As always, fashionably late there, Mark.
Hey, buddy, I don't know if you noticed, there's 3 other people on here. It seems to work. Get your ass on here and stop fucking around. I didn't even know Mark was going to be on this show. Mark's the type of guy that, like, he won't tell you nothing, and he'll show up about 5 minutes late, but he's there. You know what I mean? He's that guy. So hold on. Let me see if I can send this to... I'll send it to Instagram. That might work. So I'll pause for a second. You guys talk amongst yourself about grape, and then we'll...
Well, I got my I Spit on Your Grave shirt. I'm ready. I'm ready.
See, I was trying to find some shirt. I used to have a Savage Street shirt, but like it was one of the Joe specials, but like it got destroyed after 5,000 times that I wore it. So
I finally got to check out my 4K Ronin copy of I Spit on Your Grave, and it was pretty solid.
That's what I got.
That same one I got. Yeah.
I sent him the link as well on Discord just in case.
Okay. I'm gonna send it on Instagram, and if that don't work, I don't know.
Yeah, that was actually one of the last copies of like any movie I bought from Grindhouse before they closed their physical store.
What's up, Mark?
You sent me a dead link.
I did not send you a dead link.
Yes, you did.
How could I?
Matt just sent me the link, and it works fine from him, but the one you sent does not work.
I don't believe you, Mark.
I think you ended up, maybe you sent, because I think I got 2 from you, Uncle Bill, so
maybe
I don't
one
know.
of them, maybe one of them did. Yeah, fuck up. My apologies. I didn't know you were going to be on the fucking show anyway. Like, you never said a word in the chat or anything about it. But I'm glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Conversation. So, 1972, a film comes along that pretty much destroys Appalachian culture and like camping trips for pretty much everybody as well. And I included this one because it's not a typical grape revenge film, but it is in a way in that category. I mean, I think that more so than any of these other films, these guys were not trying to get vengeance. They were just trying to get the hell out of there, and just also happened to like run into the antagonist in the movie towards the end as well. But I still think that it's a unique take on the genre, which is Deliverance. John Boorman directed this movie in 1972, and there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with this movie. But the first thing I want to know is that, like, for those of y'all that went back and watched this, I mean, do you think that it still holds up to this day in terms of the power behind some of these scenes?
That's kind of hard to say. I mean, because it starts as like an adventure film kind of, and there's a ton of canoeing. So if you like canoeing, you like this movie. But it becomes like kind of a rape revenge thriller towards the halfway point. And then it's weird because like Reynolds is kind of like the alpha male lead type, and then becomes John Voight. So it kind of switches things up a couple times. But it doesn't really feel impactful, I'll say, at least for me. Not saying that the subject matter isn't disturbing, because it definitely is. It's just not graphic. The other films are graphic.
I think that a thing that this movie does that maybe the rest of these movies don't really try to do as much is set up like the main characters. Like, you spend an awful lot of like time before anything like really significant happens, like with them, and just kind of like learning their personalities and like how they kind of interact with each other. So you learn pretty quick that Burt Reynolds is like the badass adventure guy. You know, Ned Beatty's kind of like the dorky nerd guy. John Voight is just the everyman. And then I guess I don't know what Ronnie Cox is. He's kind of, I mean, he's a musician / like he's the voice of reason when it comes down to like, you know, what actually happens. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, I have like I kind of agree with that. Like it's not as impactful for me. I've only seen the movie once, like a year or so ago, and honestly, I don't really remember all that much about it. It is a lot of them just kind of on an adventure kind of plot, but that scene with the attack is decent, but it's a very slow movie for me. Um, I don't know if it's one that I would ever really feel like going back and watching. I think it's just okay. But yeah, it's. I was actually kind of surprised that you put it on with the other movies that we're talking about because it does kind of stand alone on the side. Um, and Rambo was saying, he likes Southern Comfort better, which I really like that movie a lot too. I can't remember if there's. I don't think there's any grape in Southern Comfort.
I don't recall any grape being in there.
Yeah, but as a film about like wilderness survival, more or less, I think Southern Comfort would be my pick over Deliverance if you're going to put the two against each other. But that and like Wolf Lake is another one that's really really good as far as wilderness survival and crazy people trying to survive uh, some killers. But yeah, I think Deliverance is just okay for me.
There's a ripoff of Deliverance that came out like a year later. It's a little bit better, I think. It's probably not as well known, but it's still a bit more interesting because there's like a bunch of money involved, and like the bad guys aren't rednecks. They're like skyjackers, and they like steal a bunch of money, and then it's an adventure where like our main cast has to fight them off. And do we turn the guys in? Do we not? Do we keep the money? That kind of thing. I think it's called Deliver Us from Evil or something like that. I think it's 1973 though. But yeah,
Hmm.
just wanted to mention that that one's a little bit more entertaining. So I do agree with Matt. It is a bit boring in a way, but it does have its moments of like good cinematography. I think the performances are solid though. Like Voight's good, Cox is good. Like everybody's good in it though. That's the one thing I will say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the thing about this movie is that like more so than anything else, it's the locations and those performances, those four guys. Like, and
Hmm.
then like every now and then, like the infamous scene, you got like a unknown dude that shows up and just kind of steals the movie for the insanity that would go on in that scene. But that movie hinges on if those guys can pull it off, really. Like, and if one of them wouldn't have been good, then it wouldn't have worked at all because you're with them the entire time. Um,
Hmm.
I got to say though that I mean I don't I got to say I disagree with you guys because I don't find the movie to be boring. I find it to be it's not a traditional action film. And I think a lot of these movies are more like geared towards action films. It's more like a drama and a morality kind of play. Like, and that becomes pretty clear after they kill the one dude, and they're trying to decide: do we go to like the authorities? Do we fucking just bury him here? Uh, and I think Ronnie Cox says uh, the line something like, "Whatever we do here, like, will affect the rest of our lives. So you better make sure that you know kind of like what you're doing," which plays out in the end. And I also think,
Yeah.
honestly, that uh, aside from those four guys, like the sheriff, who's actually the writer of the book as well, is a great character actor in this. Like he's got a couple of scenes towards the end of the movie that kind of like steal the scenes from those guys, which is crazy because those guys are like big time actors at that point. But I
I,
don't know.
I was going to say, I think this is one case where word of mouth probably hurt this film more than it helped it because I think people were expecting more from it. And then when they didn't get that, they were, I won't say angry, but it was kind of a letdown for them. But I'm like you, Uncle Bill. I don't find the film boring, um, but I do think probably people talk for years and years and years. I heard for years about the squeal like a pig
Yeah,
scene,
I mean, a lot of it has become part of like popular
Exactly.
culture. Yeah.
That and the whole "you got a real pretty mouth."
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
And then you remember like Primus sampled that "Where you going, city boy?" for
Yeah.
that, in one of their songs. So it's kind of like, a lot of the quotes from the movie have entered into the lexicon, but also like the banjo scene too. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole sequence and the guy being like the whole idea of that family being inbred was probably one of the first times that like that was in an American movie that wasn't an independent film or something like that. Like, so that was real kind of taboo around that time. And the way that way that scene plays out to me is brilliant too.
Some of that was
Because
improv, I think.
I think a lot of it was the dance was improv that the guy does when they're doing that. That's not that kid playing the banjo, of course. He didn't know how to play the banjo or anything like that, but he just happened to be really like messed up looking, which he's doing conventions now.
Yeah.
Or he was, if you want to meet him. Yeah. So thought that was interesting. But here's what I think about in terms of like the interesting thing about this movie and why I think it became so popular is because it went from like 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. It went from like nobody really knew what to expect, I don't think, with this movie, and then like they're just fucking around, canoeing, camping, stuff like that, and then literally in about 2 minutes it turns from like just a regular like adventure film drama to like one of the most infamous scenes ever put on film, which there's a lot of backstory about that scene to get into, just about the fact that a lot of it was improv. Like the guy that was the squeal like a pig guy kind of like purposely fucked with Ned Beatty, and Ned Beatty like didn't like it, and it comes across pretty well in that scene too, that he just the nervousness and just the realism. And that's one part about it that always freaked me out too, is that like you see it in real time, like everything. There's no like that whole sequence plays out in real time. Like there's no cutaways or anything like that. You don't like go to someplace else, then come back to it, or there's no like cutaways from what's happening to him.
Yeah.
It's just
it's effective. I think a lot of it has to do with because he didn't want to do it more than once. That's
I
what Ned
guarantee
Beatty
it.
said.
Yeah.
Like, so they end up doing it in one take, but because it's all one take, I think that's what makes it effective. But think about it this way: like, if you were to take that rape sequence out, does this film remain as memorable? Would it be as talked about?
No, but I think the rape sequence is the thing that generates the whole real plot of the film, which is like the real plot of the film is not about rape. It's really about like, vengeance.
Right.
And whether or not you should
I guess it
do
makes
that or not.
It makes it a little bit more of like you want to see these guys get their comeuppance because it is such a violation of a person's humanity in that way. But like if it was just a fight, like they just fist fought or something, like would the film still be impactful?
I don't think so, because I think it needed to be something absolutely out there for it to garner that kind of response from them.
Yeah.
Where Ned Beatty is basically like, they're asking like, what do you want to do with him? He's like, bury him. It's like, I don't think you would have that with like a fist fight. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
Or it had to be something where it just absolutely like polarized all of them that were there to kind of do what they did. Now I do think I agree with you on the part that like that's what people watch that movie for. Now is to see that scene, I think. Or that's the scene that's become the most infamous, really. But after that scene, there are a couple parts of the movie that's always been confusing to me. First of all, what the hell happens to Ronnie Cox? Like, so directly after the rape sequence, and then Burt Reynolds comes up. He shoots one of the hillbillies with an arrow. That guy dies. They're trying to figure out what to do with him, and they decide to just bury him there and let like the water kind of come up and like go over top of him. And then they canoe away. But then like Ronnie Cox, who plays Drew in the movie, is like at the front of one of the canoes, and he just kind of starts shaking his head and then just falls off the canoe and like dies. So I've never really been clear about what the hell happened there. And going back and watching it, I'm not any clearer really.
Yeah, I think I remember one of them say like, "Oh, I think he was shot," but then come to find out he wasn't shot anywhere. So it's weird how he fell unless if like they hit a rock or something and it shook the canoe and then maybe he fell out then. That's the only thing that I can think of.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
there like somewhat of a drop off. So they find his body later, and then like his arms like over like behind
Yeah.
his head because
Yeah.
it's
Like
broken or something. So I guess he hit a
yeah.
rock after that fall. I don't know. It's not very clear.
That part was, I mean, and the other part too was that the right guy that they killed? So there's this thought that that the guy that got away, because there was two of the guys that were the rapists. There's a thought that like he shot him from above, like in a rock, and so John Voight like scales this rock wall and
Mhm.
goes up there, and like I thought that was a really well made scene too, where the guy's shooting at him with a rifle, but he shoots with a bow, and you don't really know until he's like walking towards the camera, like if he actually got hit, and then he just falls over. So he's messing with his teeth because he's got the one guy didn't have teeth and this guy does, and he kind of pulls him down. I still get, is that the guy? I'm assuming it is. Like he went back and put his teeth in and like
I'm assuming so because I mean they did take his shotgun whenever the scene happened. There was that whole scuffle, and they took his shotgun. And he ran off in the woods. So maybe he did go back to his house, get his teeth, pop him back in, and also grab another shotgun.
that seems the most likely scenario, right? Like I mean, but why would I'm just trying to figure out why'd you put your teeth in to go out and like get vengeance? You know what I mean? He's like he's had him out the whole, but it does make for an interesting kind of like because you don't know if that's the guy really or not when you see him.
Mm-hmm.
And so the after that's all over with, another cool part about it is Burt Reynolds kind of as he's going down one of the raft or one of the whatever you call them, yeah, waves, whatever. He gets knocked out of the boat, breaks his leg, and he kind of turns into like the biggest like puss of all time after that. So he's this like Rambo sort of type. He breaks his leg, and then from the whole point on, he's just like whining and crying and like going on. And John Voight kind of becomes like the hero from that
Mm-hmm.
point. From that point on, which was interesting, like the way that they kind of turned that.
I'm guessing that was in the book.
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Because I know they did quite a bit of it in order in terms of the shooting, and
Yeah.
I saw a story about like Reynolds breaking his tailbone for
Yeah,
real.
he actually did break his ass literally in that raft. Yeah.
And they have that line at the beginning about not having insurance, and supposedly like when they were making the movie, nobody actually had insurance for real. So it's
It's
really
crazy
funny.
though, because like everyone in that film does their own stunts.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
all the stuff that you see in the canoes and things like that are all those guys actually doing that stuff, which would 100% not happen now. Like,
No.
like there's no way.
Yeah, Deb Beatty almost drowned.
Yeah,
The PA
I
had
mean,
to save him. They were talking about that on the commentary.
yeah, it's crazy. Like I was watching it once I found that out, and I was like, "There's no way I would have done this." Like, I mean, even if they got people standing around like waiting on you or whatever, like if you just fuck up one bit, like hit your head, like go under or something like that, I mean, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's crazy that they did all that too. Yeah. So Russell brings up too that the grape scene actor guy actually, Burt Reynolds was the guy that recommended him. He had worked on him in another movie, worked with him in another movie, and that's where that guy came from. And I think a lot of the guys from the scene, a lot of the people from the scene with the banjo were just the extras that lived
Yeah, they were
around that
locals.
area. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is also crazy to think about. But yeah,
Yeah, didn't the guy who played a banjo, didn't he like become like a Walmart greeter for a while or something? I heard a story about
oh my god, I hope so, because that would be amazing.
I think so. Like he worked at Walmart for a long time, and then somehow someone found him, and then that's how he started getting into conventions and stuff.
Dude, wouldn't that be fucking all if you were like at a Walmart and he was the greeter?
He just comes with a banjo.
Yeah. Oh God. So then kind of the end of the movie, which is they float down river. They finally make it to the town, and essentially the rest of the movie is them just trying not to get caught
Hmm.
and trying to make sure that nothing happens with anything, any of the bodies or anything like that. But the sheriff in the movie who's investigating it, like I said, is the guy. His name was James Dickey. That's a heck of a name, and he's the writer of the book as well. Again, like I thought he was amazing.
Yeah, he almost wasn't in it. I saw something else where him and Boardman went back and forth like every day on the set. They were constantly arguing.
He was apparently wasn't he a drunk?
Yeah, he
I
was.
think yeah. So he was just constantly like fighting with everybody. I think at some point they just kicked his ass out of there. But like, and I'm not sure why they chose him to be an actor in the movie, but it was a great choice because he's got the scene at the end with John Voight where after all the stuff has gone down and they're like getting ready to let him go, he's like, by the way, he walks up to the car and he's like, by the way, like, why'd y'all only have like I think it was 4 life jackets or something like that?
Yeah,
That whole
yeah,
scene is just great because he knows like he already knows what's going on and he's just trying to like get him to say something to like slip up.
yeah. I was
And
always surprised that Beatty wasn't a little bit more like scarred from the whole events that happened. I mean, he took it like a man, no pun intended. I mean, he's
yeah,
at the table eating and Voight's like barely holding it together, but Beatty's like, "Oh, this corn is really good." And I'm like, "Dude, you just got graped
yeah.
earlier. Like, you talking about the food?"
That's got to be a shirt. You just got graped. Yeah.
Oh
No, you're
god.
right. And I think it just shows like another thing about the movie is just showing like what happens to each character after something like that happens, like how they handle it. And Beatty's character is just like, he just wants to get the fuck out of there and he's gonna do like act or do whatever to appear as normal as humanly possible. And
Mm,
John Voight, whole thing with him too is that when he's trying to shoot the arrow at the deer and he's shaking, like he's the anxious kind of character in the
yeah.
movie up until a point. Yeah. Up until the end, really. And at the end he's just like the guy's like, yeah, he's asking those questions and he's
Hmm.
just like, nope.
Oh, and then the final sequence where he has that dream. Apparently, that inspired the Carrie scene at the end
I
of
could see
Carrie.
that. Yeah. So at the end of the movie, John Voight's in bed with his wife and like he's gotten back and everything, and he just has this vision of like the hand coming up out of the lake, uh, and he just wakes up screaming. And that I could totally see how that would be like the inspiration for Carrie. The whole point of that being is that like Ronnie Cox said, like whatever we do, you're going to live with it for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. Uh, I don't know. I think it's a great movie. I can't help it. I do. I I would agree. Like it's a slow fucking movie, and it's like probably not what a lot of people would expect. But I go back to it. We got a $20 super chat here. I don't
Nice.
I don't know
Ooh.
what this means, but I'm scared. Lonnie Noble is coming for Uncle Bill.
Okay.
All right.
I I
Who the
think
fuck's
with
Lonnie Noble? Is that somebody from this movie? Because listen, I'm already here, man. You don't get any further into Appalachia than I'm at.
I think there's like parts of it that I can see like where it is boring for some people, but there's parts of the movie too, like looking at like my upbringing and stuff, like where I can kind of see like how this movie kind of reflects that culture a lot, and there's kind of a charm to it. The whole oh, the outsiders, the city slickers, are coming into our area, and the whole nature versus them essentially. So but it really is like you guys said, a slow burn. But I don't know, there's bits of it I really liked. I like the whole concept that the whole town's going to be flooded at
Yeah.
the end, because like my grandfather, where he lived actually years ago, I think it was like back in the 70s, he went to Vietnam, and the whole town he lived in like his entire life, basically everything that happens in Deliverance happened to his town that he grew up in. So he came back from Nam and it was all flooded and gone.
It's crazy. But I mean, I think that like, yeah, the writer who was from where's he from? Georgia, Mark, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Georgia or like South Carolina, I think, or he taught at South Carolina. I heard.
and he, yeah, I mean, I feel like this is coming from someplace deeply personal to that guy, and especially at the end where he's like, "I just want to see this town die." Like, I forget how you put it exactly, but
Slow
quiet,
and
something
later
like that.
quiet.
Yeah, and I feel like that was what was happening to a lot of those towns at that time. Like a lot of stuff was drying up, and the towns were just kind of dying out, like those southern towns like that. And yeah, but what a hell of a movie. I think, did Ned Beatty win an Oscar for that? He won an Oscar, but I can't remember if it was for that movie
I
or
don't. I don't think so. I think he was nominated. One of them were nominated for something. I think it might have been was it Golden Globe? I don't know.
I
I'd
don't
have
know.
to look it up.
But yeah, that particular sequence lingers with me, and probably always will in terms of movies. So up next is Dana's all-time favorite movie. There's no way in hell that you'll convince me otherwise, Dana.
Oh, God.
And
This is gonna make me look bad.
is it though? I mean, would you say this is probably like one of your favorite films? It's got to be.
Well, I don't want to say favorite but it's okay. The first time I saw this movie, and actually, I could have watched it a lot earlier, but my parents, I've told this story before, my parents chose, and it was a good thing they did so. Um, they chose to not let me watch this at approximately 12 years of age.
I
Because
feel
it
like
was,
that's a solid decision.
yeah, it is definitely a solid decision. But here's the thing, I was hearing the audio of this film during the revenge parts. So I thought I was missing the greatest horror movie ever made because I'm hearing all these people screaming. I'm hearing, like boat motors and all kinds of stuff happening. So I'm just hearing audio. I didn't know what context it was in or anything. But I'm glad they chose not to allow me to watch it. That was one movie. I Spit on Your Grave was one movie that they said, we think you should wait till you're older to watch this. So I actually did not watch this movie until probably I was in my early 20s. And when I did, I was like, holy cow. To say this had an impact on me as far as movie watching is an understatement. Because you literally have approximately 20 or so minutes of gang rape. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
That's what is in this movie. And people that haven't seen it would probably say, "Nah, you're kidding me. There's not that." There is. And it's not just that. It's like this movie keeps going and going and going, and you think they won't do that. Oh yeah, they will do that with this film. And
Yeah. So to introduce the film, though, real quick, it's the 1978. This is the Ronin Flicks version. I think that a couple of us have this version. And oh shit, he's got the. Is that the friggin'
ooh, that's
This is the big box Wizard Video VHS.
look at that?
Nice.
Yeah, it's still sealed. The reason why, not to take away from your introduction
No,
of it,
please.
but the reason why I bought this off another collector, and this was a movie that, back in the day when you could still rent VHS tapes, this cover was, and it still is to this day, it is iconic.
Yeah.
And I just remember as a kid, like seeing this cover in the video store and just thinking, it's just one of those ones that just stuck with me forever. And you don't get that nowadays, obviously, with, we don't have video stores or anything, but, I always, always, always remembered them having this. And then towards the end of the time when this local video store closed, I remember they had it for sale. It was like up on the counter, and I was always like, oh wow, like that looks like something crazy. Like just the title, everything about it. And then years and years went by, never watched it. And but yeah, just a couple of years ago, I ended up picking up this VHS just to have it for nostalgia's sake. But I do agree with Dana. This is definitely the most intense and hyper realistic of any of the movies we're talking about. I think it might be the most hyper realistic, like grape revenge movies ever. It pushes
Well,
it so far, like even farther than Last House for me, at least. I feel like, and it's very uh, dead serious, you know.
well, and two, there's not a whole bunch of setup, and there's not a whole bunch of exposition, and nor is there like, you know, as the movie goes along, like it just stays on one path really, and that path is just utter like depravity and vengeance, and like that's just kind of like the linear point that it goes through.
That's what makes it work. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't give the audience time to breathe.
well,
It just keeps going.
there's two movies in this catalog that we're reviewing tonight where I really felt like that they captured like lightning in a bottle. This is one of them, and I think that Miss 45 is one of them too. I think there's something about both those movies that like they look like a product of that time and where they were shot, and like just there's something about them that are just kind of like Texas Chainsaw, where you could never really duplicate like what was, nor would you want to really. Like you were saying, Dana, like I mean, there as I was watching this again, I'd forgotten that like that scene, the assault scene, we'll say, takes place three different places.
Yeah.
Like it goes
Yeah.
on for like you're saying, like almost 30 minutes. And you're like, just when you think, you know, okay, this is
That's
over
it.
with,
Yeah,
move
right.
on,
They're
and
done.
like no, they're like back, and then they're back again, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man. And the whole setup is simple but effective too, where she's like just a writer trying to write something. Like she goes off into this like isolated area, and there's a guy delivering her groceries who's kind of, I don't even know what you're allowed to say anymore, but like he's
He's not all that.
Developmentally challenged.
there you go.
Yeah.
He's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's that. And he has a group of friends that he goes back and tells, like, you know, there's this woman up here and she's basically by herself. And like, and then that's when all hell breaks loose. And that's really like, once that starts, that's like the whole movie is just what happens to her, and then her kind of like getting vengeance like on them. But that being said, there is something about this movie that is like, I think probably like you're saying, more realistic than any of the other movies, even from like the reaction to, you know, the way that some of the sequences are shot that aren't like over the top, but look like they're low budget, but they look real in a way, except for the end. I got a real problem with that whole fucking like Viking boat sequence bullshit.
Yeah.
Where she's swinging axes and shit. It was like the rest of it.
The only other part that I have an issue with is when she kills the grocery boy guy, just the way she kills him.
With hoisting
Like,
him
come
up
on.
on the, yeah.
Yeah, like give me a break. You're literally gonna let someone throw a noose around your neck even though you're, you know, getting a piece. Like, come on.
I feel like
Well, not just that, but like getting her, like she weighs what, about 115 pounds? He probably weighs
Yeah.
about 200 pounds. And
So
he's
wet.
she's essentially like just using the side of the tree, it looks like,
Yeah.
to like pull him. I don't think that. I don't think it
Movie
works.
logic, guys. Movie logic. That's all it is.
I think this movie always had one of the greatest taglines as well.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Oh,
this
yeah.
woman has just cut, chopped, broken, and burned 5 men beyond recognition, but no jury in America could ever convict her. I always thought that was something about that stood out too.
I'll tell you too, Matt. If you want to send that down to me, I'm doing amateur grading of
Oh, okay.
VHS, and I'll grade that for you and send it back. I know that makes it more valuable.
Yeah, you just send me your address, and
Mhm.
I'll get it on down to you.
Send that out. Make sure to do
yeah.
that. Real quick, we got another $10 super chat from Whitesburg's own Lonnie Noble, who is stalking me and Dana apparently, and says, "I know the
Evidently, yeah.
secrets at Uncle Bill's cabin." All righty.
I
I was
don't
gonna.
even know who the heck this person is.
I think
And
though, like just back to like the severity of the movie. I haven't watched this film in quite a while. I have the Blu-ray. It's not the Ronin Flicks one. It's the one that I think it's Anchor Bay did the Blu-ray originally. I could be wrong on that, but I never did upgrade to the 4K yet. I could definitely see myself doing that, but I honestly think it's extremely uncomfortable to watch this movie. And like all of us, we like intense stuff. Like I love intense movies and movies that like evoke an emotional response. And this one is, I almost would say it's up there with the severity of a film like even Cannibal Holocaust, with how just intense some of it is. And yeah, it's I'm surprised it's honestly not talked about more. I know it does have a huge fan base and all that, but it doesn't really get these days brought up too much. I feel like in discussion when it comes to like exploitation, or in depth kind of stuff. Isn't there also a documentary called "Growing
yeah,
Up with I Spit on Your Grave"?
it's
I
Yeah,
haven't
actually
seen
on
which
that.
this. Yeah.
which is
Okay,
very good. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it.
yeah,
I just
I need
going
to
back
see
to
it.
your point for a minute though, Matt. Um, I'm not a big 4K person. Like I think a lot of them, like I was talking about earlier, like the high tension one, I thought looked like shit. The second sight one, but I will tell you with 100% degree of certainty that this 4K is amazing.
Oh yeah,
Like there's scenes in this film where they should not look
as
this
good and
good. Yeah,
clear.
there's no way. Like, and so if I would recommend that. Yeah,
I'll
for
look
that.
into it because I know for the longest time it was actually, maybe it still is, quite pricey.
Yeah,
And that's
30,
something that,
35. Yeah.
yeah, it kind of turned me off a little bit for a while. But I haven't looked into it lately. I don't know where it's still available, but I would like to upgrade it for sure because it's one of those movies where Dana, I don't know how many times you've seen it, probably many many times, but for me, it's like it literally is something I don't really feel like rewatching it all that often
Mm.
because it is so like
Well,
crazy.
honestly, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm the only woman on the panel tonight, so I think for guys, it literally is not one that you want to return to very often. Here's something that Steve told me, like when we hadn't been together very long, but we were starting to get serious about each other. He said one thing. He said, "I've never taken a bath with you." And number two, you have to use plastic utensils from here on out.
that's right. Steve fucking knows. He's seen enough great movies to know what happens.
The A quick note, I just thought about this. We were talking about how the movie starts out with, the grocery delivery boy
Yeah.
and his mental disabilities. That is also kind of a trope in and of itself in movies that are similar to this. Something like House on the Edge of the Park could be a good example.
Even
Um,
last house of
Last House on the Left, right?
yeah, he's
Yeah,
got
so
junior.
you have like the other group of people kind of egging this person on because they know that they're susceptible to making decisions that aren't the right decision to make. And I just kind of thought about that just now. That is kind of a trope where that happens in multiple movies, exploitation wise.
That's very true though. I didn't think about that. But uh I'm sorry, but it just occurred to me. I think that Lonnie Noble is Goose. It fucking because
Ah,
I think Goose might be the only other person that knows Pukey Johnson and the Pukey Johnson story because Goose is the one that actually named him Pukey Johnson. So if it is Goose, then welcome, man, and it's been a long
yeah,
time, and I hope you're all right. Um, I'm right. Okay, yeah. Well, it's good to see you, man.
yeah. And I'm sorry I didn't know you, Goose.
That's Sheriff Goose. That's right. Uh, so
And
anyway,
I just like to say though, in response to Vanderhoff asking if me and Uncle Bill were married, no, we're not married, and also we're not cousins. Somebody else said we were
Oh God,
cousins, and I said, no, we're
we
not
could be
cousins.
both in this area.
Have you done the spit test where you send it in and 23andMe or whatever?
Yeah, I think it
No.
comes back and has like one line. Yeah, we've done that. There's no like branches on our ancestral tree. You retired, Goose. I did not know that, man. Congratulations. I'm glad.
But yeah, the kills in this movie are pretty inventive as well, though. Like when it does get into the revenge part,
Yeah.
obviously any man that's seen this film, there's the one scene, like Steve said, that will stick with you forever because it shows very little, honestly, but it's so much more effective because you don't see what
Right.
is happening below the surface of the water in the bathtub. And
Mhm.
it's almost like that knife, it's like you just cringe. You can feel the sharpness of what that would feel like.
No, dude,
It's terrifying.
that scene, and I went over the like watching all these movies, like I have been for the last week, getting ready for the show. That's the most effective scene in any of these movies. And I'm not sure why, but I think it's just because like they had to create that like with so low budget that the way that it's done looks legitimate, and his
Perfect.
reaction looks legitimate too. Like where it takes him a minute, or not a minute, but like a second to figure out like what the fuck is going on. He,
Shock. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, from the shock, he's like, because okay, for the people that may not have seen this movie, I'm assuming most people have. Like she tricks him to get into the bathtub with her, and then she's kind of like messing around with him down there with one, and then she grabs a knife with another, and essentially castrates him. But when she does it, like for a split second, he's like, as it like right after it happens, he's like, oh, he's like, that's so pleasurable, it's painful or something like that. And then like you see like they back up to a wide shot, and you see like a just a squirt of blood come up like out of the bathtub, and then he starts freaking out, and he's yelling shit that you would like really probably would be legit. Like he's yelling mama and like
Mm-hmm.
I want my mother and all this shit, like shit you would probably yell like when you go into shock or like in some sort of trauma like that.
Hmm.
And then she just kind of locks the door and leaves him in there to die. And that whole sequence of any of these movies, I think it's the most effective sequence. It just seems so real. Like it seems like something that would happen.
And her like cleaning up the blood afterwards
Yeah.
and just
Mhm.
sponging all the stuff to clean it. It's like so matter of fact and like unflinching. It's very effective. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, the rest of the sequences are kind of your typical, you know, death scenes or whatever. There's a hanging, and then there's like one of them gets killed with an axe, and
The
yada
boat
yada,
motor.
the boat motor, yada yada yada. But like that one is just like that's on a
Mhm.
whole other level. But
But I
is
always like the boat motor thing when he's like, I don't want to die. Please, I don't want to die. And she says exactly to him what he said to her before he did this awful thing to her. Suck it, bitch. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, get that bastard. It's like,
Dana's like,
I
hell
do.
yeah.
I like at that scene. I'm like, yeah, you tell him. And I remember. I just gotta say this. I remember showing this movie for the first time to my cousin Heather, and Uncle Bill's met my cousin Heather several years ago at a convention. So I told her, I said, now this is a rape revenge movie, so there's going to be some hardcore rape scenes here near the beginning of it. I said, but just hold on to your hat, and wait till it gets the revenge part. And she was very quiet through all the rape stuff. We were both quiet. And then when it hit the revenge, we were both like, yes, get those guys. We were both just wound completely up. And guys would be sitting over in the corner with their legs crossed, cringing and stuff, I know. And they probably think these chicks are crazy, sitting here watching this. But, it's an experience, for male and female alike. But
It's an experience, that's for sure.
I think they have totally different reactions to the film.
Well, I mean,
Definite.
the the other part of the movie, like we were talking about, where it's very difficult to watch, is that whole sequence, and especially once they get to the rock and all that, like,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so like brutal and unrelenting, and just all of that is just so hard to watch. And so I kind of feel like it's not as bad once you see that stuff, because like they set it up to where like she's gone through like the worst shit imaginable. So you don't really feel bad for those guys, and you don't really feel like, I think that is an incredibly effective scene, but I wasn't like tore up by it or anything. I kind of felt like that he had it coming, like a lot of those guys had. And there's the sequence in there too that's brilliant, like where she's trying to, it's almost like she's trying to figure out if he has any redeeming qualities whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you remember, like right before she does that, she's asking like, so do you like your family?
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, yeah, they're all right. And do you like your wife? And he's like, yeah, she's fine. Like, what's with all the questions or whatever? And it's like she's trying to figure out, all right, do I want to do? Is there anything to this guy that could
I'm gonna
be?
give him chances to
Yeah,
redeem
and he just
himself.
fucks it up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, he
yeah,
messes it up really bad. But something else I wanted to bring up, it's like the rape stuff is really, really bad and it's hard to watch and stuff. But here's the thing that really gets me. You keep thinking, well, maybe she'll get away, maybe they'll stop, maybe they'll go away.
yeah,
And she's stumbling to the house she's renting. She gets in there, she's literally crawling, basically, on the porch. She gets into the house, and that's where you're supposed to be safe. That's where you're supposed to be safe in your house. And she picks up the phone, I guess, to call the cops. And that boot comes up and kicks the phone, and you're like, oh God, they're in the house with her. This is not over. And to me, that's one of the most painful things to watch because you know it's not over yet.
yeah. You
And
see that happen again too in Miss 45, not to that degree, but like
yeah.
where you think it's over with, but it's not really over with. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
but I think I Spit in Your Grave did it. First of all, it did it first. I think it did it better because it just like at each step of the way, you think it's going to be over, and you can kind of take a breath, and then they show back up, and just it just destroys, like each time it just destroys that whole facade. But interesting thing about this movie too, based on a true story, apparently. I mean, partially, Mir Zarkai, who's the director, actually helped a woman who had been raped to go to the police and things like
Yeah.
that, and that's kind of where he got the inspiration for this movie, and kind of like his experience with the reaction of the police, who were just kind of like, nonchalant, asking her questions, like kind of trying to make it seem like she had some part in it, as to what happened. And so he kind of took all that and was like, well, what would happen if, like, they didn't go to the police and they just took it into their own hands? And, that was kind of the way that the movie was created. Before I go into the chat though, again, I want to make an announcement real quick while we got like 95 people in here. Um, we have on at the end of this show a special guest announcement, an interview that we've already done. It's in the can, so to speak, and it's awesome. And at the end of this show, I'm going to announce it on here, and I think a lot of people will be pretty psyched about it. Like a particular subset of fans will be excited about it, and some people won't give a shit, but we don't care about those people. So that being said, let's go over to the chat real quick. X-Ray Punch says he considers I Spit on Your Grave, They Call Her One Eye, and Miss 45 part of a thematic trilogy. That's an interesting idea. Let's see. Did we convince Dana to join our Patreon yet? I don't know, Dana. Have you been convinced yet? You going to join that fucking Patreon?
I'm convinced. Just give me time. Yeah, y'all are gonna find me on the Patreon. You will.
I don't believe you. Oh, X-Ray says the Redhead Grape Revenge trilogy. Okay. All right. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, I have, Nick. I've seen all those movies, I think.
Yeah, there's no revenge in any of those movies, I don't think, right?
No.
I was hoping somebody would bring this up for the people that have had to sit through this movie.
Oh,
No,
What
man.
What are your thoughts about the sequel to this movie, which is
don't watch it if you haven't.
I'll never watch it. I don't need, what is it, 2.5 hours?
it's almost 3 hours
Way,
long.
way
Okay,
too
Yeah.
yeah.
long.
I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. I don't need that kind of negativity. A 2.5 hour terrible movie. Yeah, I don't need that.
It was horrible.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
was
I don't think it needed to be made at all. Like
No.
the original film
No.
does it a justice. The remake's actually not too bad.
That
But
That's
I
right. I
mean,
forgot
Remake
about that.
sequels.
yeah, but yeah, there you go, Ryan. Like the remake sequels, like, do we need 5 I Spit on Your Grave movies? Like, come on.
I kind of agree. Deja Vu is on par with Creepshow 3 and Bloody Murder for the worst films ever made. Like, there was a sequel before that too that she did not make, where she was doing another sequel to I Spit in Your Grave with another guy. I think it was Donald Farmer, who was kind of a low budget
You talking
film
about
director.
the Savage Vengeance?
I can't, maybe something like that. And then she just dropped out of it because like they kept changing the script and fucking with the movie. And so that was, I would say that was in the 90s, maybe, or early 2000s. Anyway, so eventually they made Deja Vu, which like a lot like the Dark Knight of the Scarecrow sequel and like the I'm assuming like the Mutilator sequel that we may never see. It's probably not a good idea to make sequels to these films 40 years later and like on really low budgets with shitty digital cameras and stuff. Yeah, Savage Vengeance was apparently the name of it, Dan.
Yeah, that's the one with, as Steve calls it, it has the Conway Twitty rapist. And I'm not kidding you. There is a rapist
Steve,
in
I
this that
swear to
looks
God.
like Conway Twitty. I'm not kidding.
I like the fact that Steve like categorizes them as well.
He categorizes the rapist.
Yeah,
He's got an Excel spreadsheet on
he
his
I
computer,
guarantee he does. Yeah.
a
Google
pie chart.
Docs. Yep. So before we move on, though, any last thoughts on I Spit on Your Grave in terms of its place? It's probably like, I'd say Last House is like the granddaddy of all these types of films, but I think I Spit on Your Grave is even more Last House than Last House, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think like the big issue, like why people don't talk about this movie a whole lot, is because of the almost 30 minute grape scene, and I think that's why like a lot of people, don't say that they're fans of it or don't really talk about it because of that, and that's what's kind of hurt it over the years with the way things are nowadays. So, but
I'd say that's probably true. I mean, you can't really like nobody's going to touch this movie with a fucking 10-foot pole the way things are now.
I think there's one movie that popped into mind with a kind of it's a very effective assault scene. This is definitely more effective, I feel like, but as far as a more modern movie, Irreversible,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
that would be considered a revenge film, I think, as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that the scene in that is very effective. But I think I Spit on Your Grave, it's probably, I would say it's my favorite of the genre, of this type of subgenre. I think it's the most effective one. I think it's, there's not too many bad things I can say about the movie. It's well made too. That's the thing. It's not like, just shocking or just for shock value. It's actually very well scripted. It's well acted.
It's what I was going to say. It's really well acted too for what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart. Some of these other movies that we'll talk about are much more lighthearted.
Yeah.
This one is black as sin as far as the it's black-hearted completely, and cynical for most of the film until the revenge, obviously, but it's real effective.
You just got to take a minute though to say that even though that we enjoy these films, that we're good people. I feel like that you need to just
Yeah.
Everyone needs to know that it's okay that we talk about these films because we're good people and we don't have
Oh.
any Vince McMahon like stuff going on.
No. One quick question though, Dana. Like, so when you saw this, was this like the first of its kind for you?
Yeah, because I had not yet seen
Okay.
Last House on the Left or Miss 45 or even Savage Streets at that point.
Okay.
I can't even
So-
remember when I saw this, the Spit on Your Grave. I don't remember, but like I said, the cover just was one of those ones. Like I have a mental list of covers that I saw at the damn video store all those years ago, and and I'm blanking on the name, but who was it that they used
It
for
was
the cover?
Demi Moore,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Demi Moore. So that's
it really
Demi Moore
was
on the
because
cover.
Charles Band has confirmed that that's who that was because he was working on this. He owned this movie and was working on Parasite at the same time. And he was like, who could I get, to be on the cover of this that would make it sell? And he he thought
I think
about
she was
her,
like
which
16 at the time or something, or 17.
Yeah.
Demi Moore
well,
was-
that makes sense for Charles Band. Yeah.
yeah.
And another
He's not
thing
the greatest
is,
guy ever either. He's the Vince McMahon. He really is of like low budget.
and this obviously this scene there's nothing in the movie
No.
that
Right.
this shot on the cover is just simply just a photograph. It has nothing like she doesn't look like that in the movie. She doesn't wear that. She doesn't, but it's a fantastic poster
Yeah.
art. Like even though it has nothing really it's nothing from the movie exactly, but it's very effective.
It reminds me of like Sleepaway Camp 2, where it has nothing to do. Like
Yeah,
there's nobody in it from the
exactly.
movie, but
Yeah.
it's killer. Like,
I got to tell this story about Steve. Some people may have heard this again.
Oh,
Here's
God.
another Steve story for you guys and gals.
From the IT
What-
closet.
When Steve was probably actually too young to be watching this either, his mom went to the video store, and this is no lie. Steve's told me this on more than one occasion. I said, "Is this really true, Steve?" He said, "Yeah, it's true." But his mom went to rent a movie for the family to watch. And she picked I Spit on Your Grave and brought it home, and they sat down as a family and watched it because his mom thought it was a comedy.
Based off the cover.
I think that's what happened to Steve right there. I think that's it all.
He didn't fall. He didn't get dropped on his head as a baby. It was the whole experience
Yep.
with I Spit on Your Grave.
That made him the man he is today.
Is today. Yep. So Jacob does not like. I don't think I was spelling
Hmm.
Greg. He says Irreversible has the worst scene of its kind. It feels so much more real. Zombie Ass was very well made. I agree.
I think the first time I ever saw I Spit on Your Grave was when the double pack came out that came with the original and the remake. I got it
Oh yeah.
at Walmart, of all places.
Have you ever listened to the Joe Bob commentary, Dana? I feel like you
Yeah,
probably have.
yeah, I have.
I've never heard that one. That's Steve's earliest memory.
Lord, I hope not.
Sorry, I had to get that in there. Okay, so transition then to the next one, which I really like this movie a lot more this third time that I watched it because I'd watched it a couple times, but it had been years and years and years. Now that I know like some more about the background to it as well. But this is 1981's Miss 45, which I picked this up from Orbit. This is the Blu-ray, the new German one.
Oh, nice.
This is amazing, by the way. The transfer on this is amazing. I highly recommend it. It has a A and B like cover, and the A cover is awesome, but it sells out like within like 5 seconds. It's one of her like as a cartoon in the nun outfit and everything, but you can't get it because it's like people like just buy it immediately. So this is the same one in a different cover, but
that's a
I love
media book.
the original poster. It's one of my favorites.
oh yeah, and that's what's on the DVD, I think.
And that German, is that a media book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
I figured they love those.
they love to get into their media books. Yeah. So this is about as straightforward as it gets, but I'm going to tell you right now that Zoe Lund, who is the lead in this, um, out of anybody in these movies, is probably the most mesmerizing one to watch. Just her like look is insane. Like she was just insanely beautiful at that, and she's like perfect for the camera. Like everything she does, like she's mute, so she has to be right. Like for
Mhm.
this to work, and it just like you follow everything that she does because she's like just that kind of like mesmerizing. Um, so she's a mute seamstress, works at this agency, and essentially just like on us with I Spit on Your Grave, she's going home one night. um I think it's Abel Ferreira who plays the
He's the
rapist.
first
Yeah, the
rapist.
first one. And kind of like attacks her outside of outside on the street, grapes her, and
Over a trash can too, of all things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got dressed in some sort of weird mask or something like
Like
a
a Alice Sweet
plastic.
Alice like mask.
Yeah, exactly, like
Yeah.
that kind of
Donut
mask.
Christmas, like clear with the makeup on it.
So it's doubly kind of like disturbing because that mask just looks really like off. And then basically tells her that he'll be back later
Yeah.
on, and and then so she's of course suitably freaked out, goes to her apartment, and I'll be damned if the same like shit doesn't happen like with happened in I Spit on Your Grave. There's somebody else in the apartment waiting on her that ends up doing the same thing, and then at that point she's just kind of like, after that it's just kind of a switch kind of turns off in her brain, and she's fucking up at work and just kind of like going into trances and things like that. Starts to affect like her whole life, and then she does the Chuck Bronson thing. But I swear to God, it reminded me of Death Wish, where he kind of like
Yeah.
he's he hawing around for a little while, like trying to figure out what he's going to do, and then he finally just like he works himself up to it, and then likes it, and yeah.
There's one difference though with this movie is like where Bronson, he was going out like in Death Wish and was waiting for someone to just like come up and like try to mug him and then he'd kill him. In this one, it's like sometimes innocent people, they're just like, "Hey, lady, saw you drop this bag. Let me run to you for like block
Yeah.
on end." And then
Wasn't
rest
that
get to
who was that too? That was a
gosh,
actor, like a famous actor now.
I can't recall who.
Shit. Hold on.
I don't remember.
But he just runs up and just gets blasted right in the head, which I mean, hell, for one, she's shooting a 45, one-handed, which I mean,
Yeah.
someone who's inexperienced with that, that's a hell of a shot.
She's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Bacon learned how to shoot like every gun imaginable in like 10 minutes in Death Sentence. So
He had the manual though.
yeah, he
Right.
had the
It have the manual.
She didn't have the manual, but she figured it out.
Yeah, she just took it off the guy who was robbing her place after she beat him to death with an iron, of all things. Like, one you use to like to iron your clothes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, Dana. I know you've had to have watched this movie.
Oh,
If you liked
yeah.
I Spit on Your Grave, I mean, this is kind of like
Yeah, and remember when we had the Halloween party at Jenny Wiley? That's who I dressed like.
Yep.
Is the chick from Miss 45. I had the nun outfit. I had a fake gun strapped to my upper thigh and everything else. I had the bright red lipstick on. There are pictures floating around of that. Of Steve was a priest. I was dressed as a nun. There's pictures of that Halloween party of me kissing him. Wes was the devil. CK was the devil. He's got
There's
an
a-
upside down cross over top of us. It's totally blasphemous, but yeah.
There's a great video of like Steve and Wes dancing around.
Oh yeah. That's great too.
Is that the same one where Steve body slammed you, UB?
Yes, that's the same.
Yes.
That's the one.
I've seen a
Yeah.
couple of those photos.
Yeah. That is the infamous party where Steve broke my rib or dislocated or did some shit to it. I don't know because I can't remember anything about it, but something happened. So, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that like I've only seen this movie once actually. I don't own it. I would love to own it. I think I'll try and keep up. Hopefully, Orbit gets more of those copies of it. But I
They were
streamed
getting
it.
them in pretty consistently there for like a couple of weeks. They get a couple in.
Yeah. But it's more of a. It's one of those movies where it's a build up to the very last final kind of scene or sequence. Um, and not a lot of these movies are really like that. This one kind of, the revenge kind of culminates all at the end of the movie, from what I can remember.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, the end sequence is what is it, like a Halloween party?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about that too with this movie anyway. Because essentially, I mean, before that part, it's just her going around shooting people with a 45. That's basically like the rest of the movie. But I mean, the best part about watching this movie to me is watching her, who, by the way, like once you find out her backstory and things, like it's the saddest shit imaginable. Like she was 17 or 18 years old when this movie was made. I don't know if y'all were aware of that. And she was, according to Abel Ferreira, the director, because I watched some of the interviews, she was straight as an arrow while this movie was being made. She wasn't on any drugs or didn't take anything. She was going to art school. She was like, I think she was in like an Ivy League kind of school, like I mean, an upper level kind of college. And somewhere right after this movie takes place, she got addicted to heroin, and she ended up
That's
dying.
right. She overdosed, right?
She died at 38 years old from a heroin overdose. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I just think, man, like what a fucking waste, because like she's a movie star. Like if she would have got a chance to actually be in something, where she was not, not a independent kind of vengeance movie, but with something with lines where she could have really like, I mean, she would have been, I feel like she would have been up there with like other actresses of that time period, just from her look alone.
Yeah.
Didn't happen that way. But anyway, everything leads to the end. You're right. So, and I'm curious what you guys think about the ending in terms of symbology, because it's her dressed as a nun shooting men. Like she only shoots men, by the way. There's no women shot in this movie that I can recall anyway.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
before we even get to that, what about the guy who shoots himself in the
Yeah.
head?
Oh
Jesus, yeah.
yeah.
Like that was so out of left field. Like I remember when I first saw this movie years ago, I was like, oh, she's done for. Like he's got the gun, he's got the upper hand. This is it. And then he shoots himself in the head. What do you guys think about that? Like, why did that even go down that way?
The dialogue, I think, is the big reason why it went down that way. Because I mean, he's talking about how he got out of the army and stuff, and he became like a shoemaker, and come to find out his wife was cheating on him with another woman and all this other stuff, and he was just in a very, I guess, vulnerable and depressed state, and he was just exposing that to her, and then the fact that she pulled a gun on him, like as if, I don't know, a way like, oh, you're giving me basically a chance to end all this shit.
There's a way out.
Gun and
Yeah.
He seemed so upset though at first.
He
and
did.
then he
thought like it was a joke.
Right. And then he turns it on himself. Yeah, that was I did not see that coming. This I mean, this movie though, like a lot of the Nicholas St. John, Abel Ferreira films that they did together, it always stood out. Like so I mean they did King of New York together, The Addiction, Body Snatchers, a lot of that 90s stuff.
Did they do Bad Lieutenant?
No, Abel Ferreira wrote that one with somebody else. But
that was always one I liked as well.
That one is fucking great. I love Bad
Yeah.
Lieutenant. Even the remake is pretty good too. But yeah, he anytime they do anything together, I'm always willing to sit down and watch it. It's a shame that their collaborations didn't go beyond the 90s. I know Nicholas St. John said he just fell out of love with the movie business. I know him and Abel had a falling out, so that probably had something to do with it as well. But that whole 2-decade streak that they had going was great, and I think it mostly started with Miss 45. Just throughout the entire movie, that sense of exploitative, the dread and the early 80s like New York feel. I love that stuff.
I tell you, something I think has a lot to do with the way this movie feels too is the soundtrack is completely different than any of
Hmm.
the other soundtracks of any of these movies. It's so fucking. It's like jazz,
Hmm.
like atonal jazz, like stuff that just it doesn't even seem like it should be a music or anything. Like it's just it's very like everything about the movie is kind of very put you on edge, including that score, which is just all over the place, like with the movie as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, this one and I Spit on Your Grave both to me have something about them that captures a period in time that's like you could just see it being real, like
Hmm.
a real like Miss 45 feels like New York, like it feels
Yeah.
like that's exactly where like it should take place. That's what's happening. Like that's
Hmm.
nothing about it feels fake in that way. And I'm assuming it's probably because it's shot guerrilla style around like New York,
And he's
like
from
most
New
of
York as well, so
yeah.
it fits.
And I mean, it just has like uh has a feeling to it where I could watch it like over and over again just because it like gives you a sense of like excitement. Something about it is just completely unique as opposed to all these movies. Um, but yeah, so the with the ending of it though, I mean, I feel like you could interpret that a million different ways. I mean, is he making some sort of statement about religion? Is he making some sort of statement about like? I mean, it's kind of uh odd to me that she's just dressed as a nun for no reason. Is he making just a statement about vengeance or like? I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I just that always stood out to me.
I wonder if she's trying to somehow cleanse herself of what she's about to do because she's got to know what her plans are. So maybe in her fractured mind at that state, um, she thinks, well, I'm going to be a nun. I'm going to go to this party and I'm going to kill these guys. But a nun is kind of like a symbol of something pure, supposedly.
So she's like cleansing the in a way the world maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
I
she
can
is
see
sort of like an angel of death. I think
Yeah.
it was
Angel of Vengeance, yeah.
yeah,
The
Nicholas St. John said her name was based off the Greek god of death, Thanatos. Her name's Thana in the movie, so
Mm-hmm.
kind of makes sense.
yeah. I think the ending of this one is probably a little bit more of a downer than some of the others because like she's just shooting random fucking people she worked with. I'm
Yeah.
like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Like, I mean, she takes out about 5 people at the end that were just at like an office party, and they're just like one of them was kind of a sleaze bag, like her boss or whatever
Oh, yeah.
at the place, but
Hmm.
like the rest of them are kind of just happened to be there, I guess
Or
it's a
like the guy offers her a ride in the rain and he gets killed.
Oh,
yeah.
Audi Prince or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
She shoots them both.
in a sense, it's almost like a more realistic, in a way, depiction of what, like, as far as like I Spit on Your Grave, she puts all this, you know, effort into the different ways she's going to kill these people, and it's more of like a movie kind of plot. But Miss 45 is more of a realistic in the sense that, like, yeah, like if someone was that fragile mentally, and her being a mute and all that, probably had something, she already has a hard life already, and then she is assaulted multiple times. And so I
Yeah.
think the realism from this one comes from, like, she just does really just snap, and it's like she's just killing random people. And I feel like that could be maybe a more realistic depiction of what somebody snapping mentally from like extreme trauma might actually do, something like that, where they just
Mm-hmm.
lash out. And like you said, she's just killing random men. And like that, I feel like, I don't know, just seems more realistic rather than,
Yeah, there's no like good or bad to it. You know what I mean? They're like at the
Mm-hmm.
end, she's not trying to like decide, who deserves to die or whatever. She's just fucking shooting people.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think it was genius having her be a mute because it's that much more painful. She has no way, she can't. I mean, they could gag her or something, try to keep her from screaming, but she can't scream. She can't even try to scream. And I think there is a scene where she actually has her mouth open, like, something should be coming out, but it can't. And I think that's part of probably where her frustration comes from and the fracturing of her mind as well, is she's just angry. These men, two men violated her in one day,
Hmm.
and she couldn't express any kind of anger, she couldn't express any kind of fear. I think you see maybe tears running out of her eyes, but it's so painful to watch, and in some ways it's more painful to watch than some other rape scenes because those women were able to yell and scream, and she couldn't do any of those vocalizations.
isn't it weird too that like that's the case in this movie, and then in Savage Streets, that's also like
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
sister. It's like I wonder if he took that or somebody took that from this movie. Like it just seems too much of a coincidence, but I don't know. Um,
There was
but
also very minimal like stuff in the script as well, like which I think helps it in a way because they were doing a lot of it just playing off this character's trauma, the anger and emotion that she had, and they were just going and shooting different things and trying to see what worked based off of what happened to her. So that really does play a big part in it. I think I think if you like map everything out and have all this extra dialogue and all these extra characters that try to give exposition about this or that, like it wouldn't come off the way that it does.
yeah,
That's just my take, though.
Yeah, like the only dialogue she has is at the end when she yells out "sister." That's it,
yep.
which is
Right? Yeah.
crazy that she doesn't say that like or anything prior.
Well, what surprises me, and she didn't kill that damn bitchy landlady.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you, Dana.
Oh my
I
god.
thought the same thing.
she was so annoying, and
Wanted her
that
to die.
dog. Oh my gosh!
Phil, what did you do to my dog?
I wanted to like field goal kick that dog sometimes. Just watching that movie, how annoying it was. Oh my gosh! I wouldn't really do that. I'm just saying that.
You're a good person. Keep that in mind.
I know.
Okay, I forgot about this, but yeah, Zoe Lund is actually one of the co-writers of Bad Lieutenant. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
That's who it was. Yeah, that's who
Yep.
Abel wrote it with.
isn't that crazy? I mean, think about it. And I kind of agree with this too. Like the early '80s dread is like residual '70s leftover in the '80s. So like for the first, I think somebody said this too before. Like I think it might have been Tarantino. The first couple of years after one decade, like it's basically like it's still the same decade. So the early '80s are basically just a continuation of the '70s, and this is what this movie feels like. Really, I mean, it feels like it's coming from like the late '70s more so than like the '80s and the way that it's filmed and everything. Um, for sure.
Yeah.
Jacob says it's a dark film, but there are moments of levity, like when she tries to walk the dog into traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she ties it up like on like a piece of rebar or something, like at a
Yeah.
dock, like out of all places.
I think it's got to be the most stylish of all these
Yeah.
films, in terms of just kind of the way that it's shot and just some of the choices. It's more art house, I guess, than the rest of these films that are more kind of
Yeah.
just grindhouse. It's art house versus grindhouse, I guess. Speaking of which, the next one is probably the most fun movie. The
Yeah.
most fun. This may be the most fun grape revenge movie ever made.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's like the popcorn grape revenge movie, and that is 1984 Danny Steinman's classic Savage Streets.
That's right.
So I'm hoping, and I brought the DVD because I was just like, I'm a mark for this film. So
I have that one too still.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wes and I actually had the experience, and it was an experience to sit with Danny Steinman for a weekend, and he was at that point in his life. crotchety old man to say the least.
Yeah.
He was, I mean, he was nice enough to us, like when we first met him and everything, but he just seems like a typical, I don't know where he's from. He seems like he should be from New York or somewhere like that, because like that's the vibe that he gives off. Like he's just like very straightforward, very aggressive, very like pushy, kind of guy. Which does not match with the Southern vibe, which is like the exact opposite, laid back, kind of passive. But so I don't think that we mesh too well. But that being said, he did create two of my favorite movies and two of the best kind of movies of that kind of genre, I think, which is Friday Five and Savage Streets. Um, Savage Streets is the lightest of any of these movies, even though it does have like a horrific. There's something about it that's like it's like the fucking Lost Boys of exploitation movies or something. Like the soundtrack, I think, has a lot to do with it.
Love
The
the
way that
soundtrack.
the way that it's shot, it's like all bright colors, and like they're always out in like this Vegas style kind of landscape.
Mhm.
The soundtrack is like such a highlight for this movie. Like just
Oh,
that
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
cheesy 80s hard rock. Like
Yeah.
I saw the vinyl soundtrack to this one time. I don't know how long ago it was. It was before I had seen the movie, and I always regret not purchasing it because I've never seen it in person since then. And after I eventually saw the movie, I was like, "Damn, I want that soundtrack on vinyl," because there's like two songs on it that I legitimately like. Some of them are just like that typical, like I said, cheesy 80s hard rock where it goes pretty well with the movie. But there's two of them. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but they're like, I would listen to this just any day, like any day of the week. I jam this song. So
Well,
great
I think every
soundtrack.
song on there is great. Like,
Yeah,
so
Same.
you got Innocent Hearts, which is great. You've got Quiet Ones you got to watch. You've got the kind of like the title song, which is also the title song for the Transformers movie, which always freaked me out. Nothing's going to stand in our way.
yeah.
Was also used in that movie, so I'm like, that's an oddest like combination of films to use that in. But pretty much all the songs, man, like I love that whole soundtrack is great. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uncle Bill, didn't I? Oh, many moons ago, didn't I get you the soundtrack on vinyl to Savage
I've got the
Streets?
soundtrack on vinyl because that's what I got Linda Blair to sign when we met her. So if you did, Dana, then I appreciate that. I didn't know
Well, I
where I
think I
got.
wanted to get you the poster, and I couldn't get you the poster, and I think I ended up getting that instead.
I actually finally found that poster and got that as well back when posters weren't $800, for everything. Um, but yeah, I collected a lot of stuff from this movie for a long time because I was a huge mark for it. I got the 1 out of 25 like poster. I forget who put it out. It might have been Mondo or somebody like that, but like I've got that as well. Um, anyway, basic story of this movie. Linda Blair, I guess she's a head of like a girls' gang. Are they a gang really, or are they just like
Not really, no. And that's
friends? Like,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah.
Just a
They're
group
like,
of friends.
yeah, tight knit group of friends. Yeah.
And her sister, Linda Blair's sister, is played by Linnea Quigley, and she is deaf and also mute, as we were just talking about with Miss 45. And there is like another kind of like group of guys that are kind of slime balls that are always giving them shit and like following them around town and stuff like that. So one day, one of them catches the sister alone in a gym, and there is a great shot in this movie. I got to give Danny Simon credit for a lot of stuff in this movie. Uh, Great in terms of like it's memorable and like it's terrifying. Where like Linnea Quigley's basically being dragged into like
The bathroom.
the bathroom where they end up raping her, and like there's something about that shot, the way that he filmed it, that's really really haunting too. And so they go through with all that, and then of course that scene is pretty disturbing as well. I don't know how it ranks in all these films that we've watched, but it's
It's up there.
up there.
Yeah.
And so Linda Blair finds out about it and essentially like takes and because Linnea Quigley's character, I forget her name,
Heather, I
Heather,
think.
yeah, is hospitalized, so she takes it upon herself to kind of like take vengeance on all these people with a crossbow, which is an interesting choice. And I know it sounds like this movie would be like incredibly dark and like it's really not though. Like she's got fucking
It's
one-liners for all the
yeah.
kills and
Yeah.
stuff. It's like that type of movie.
It's
Lots
kind of
of
in the same vein of Class of 1984.
yeah.
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 Like it's very much like that.
With the like overly exaggerated like the group of guys that they are a gang. They're called the Scars. They're called,
hmm
and that overly exaggerated like gang people that like you're supposed to believe these are all people that are in high school as well, and they're like, he's got a razor blade earring, and they're just like, totally stylish, and lots of one-liners, gratuitous nudity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
Dude, there's
yeah.
nobody better at delivering one-liners in this film than John Vernon, though. Just out of fucking
Yeah.
nowhere, that character, and you know that he was just coming up with this stuff. Like nobody wrote this stuff. Like
Oh, hold on. Wait, I think I got it right here. Is this?
Go fuck an iceberg.
yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
He's talking to the punks and stuff in the school, and he just comes out with that. Like
Yeah.
it's just perfect. Like we had a shirt that said that with his face on it, like back in the day that Joe did.
I actually got that shirt too, and
yeah.
Steve said you're not allowed to wear that anywhere, Dana.
That shirt is amazing. I wish I still had that fucking thing.
He also tells the guys, I don't think I can say it on YouTube, the F word that he calls them guys when they're in the hallway there, and he's like, "You baggots. I want you baggots to get off my campus." Or whatever. It's like, it's hilarious. It's like,
I think he says something like, "Take your asses."
Asses.
Just that whole like his whole character is so out of place in that movie, but great.
Yeah,
and yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because that's one of the best parts about that movie, really.
And he's like, one of the other one-liners he has, he's like, "Now wipe your nose and get out of my office." Blow your nose and get out of my office.
That's right. He keeps telling her to quit crying, like that woman he brings in there. Like they get into a fight, and he brings her and Linda Blair in there, and he's like, "Quit crying." And he just keeps telling her like, "Shut up." He's like, "Shut up, quit crying." Yeah, it's just he's unhinged in the best way possible throughout that whole movie. And then I also thought that the lead Jake, Robert Dreyer, the lead punk, was really good in it too. Just the guy that you like love to hate, and essentially like he just after the rape scene or the grape scene, I'm sorry, he just kicks her in the head, like and kind of and there's another scene where he fucking Ultimate Warrior like gorilla press slams that one girl, like all
throws her.
I'm like, she's in her wedding dress, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she has her wedding dress with her, I think.
Yeah, in a box.
Okay. Yeah, right.
He just throws it. Yeah. And I was like, that's an interesting choice, Danny Steinman. Just have him like,
the scene, the assault. Yeah, it's definitely up there in the intensity. Also her being a mute as well, not being able to say anything. And I watched the interview with Linnea Quigley on the Blu-ray from Red Shirt Pictures. Did the interview for that. And I don't know if you guys have seen that interview on there, but
I watched it today.
Yeah, she, in that interview, at least, I got the vibe that she was, genuinely almost seemed uncomfortable with this entire movie in a way. Like she wasn't really. She says, I liked it, I loved it, and all that. But if you listen to the way she's talking and how she's describing, like, the day that they shot her assault scene, how like it just happened to be a day on set when the entire crew showed up on that day specifically, and I almost get the idea that she sort of felt like she was being like they were all kind of taking advantage of the fact that was going to be happening and wanted to see it or something. And it was, I don't know how many films she had done before this, because it was really early. for her. One of the
Yeah,
first.
this movie was made in what, 84?
Yeah.
So when did Silent Night Deadly Night come out? Was it 84 too?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
It came out
positive
the
she had
same
done many other movies. Yeah.
But yeah, she seemed like her describing it in that interview was kind of like, she even had said that they were initially going to add in more to that scene where they were going to have like blood running down her leg afterwards, and she was against that. She was like, no, we don't need to do that. That's too much. It's already intense enough as it is. And but yeah, she does really well for the role that she has in the movie, because it's not easy to not have any dialogue or not make any sound, like much like Miss 45. You can't emote
Yeah,
in a
I mean,
way.
I really feel like that, Quigley she's kind of classified as the definitive scream queen now, but there was a period there where she could really act. Like, I thought she did a great job in this, and she did a great job in Return of the Living Dead. Like, I mean, that whole character was
Yeah.
really good. And then she just kind of became, for hire kind of, scream queen. But that's kind of what happened to a lot of these girls. But there was a period of time where I think she was really kind of legit too, and this was part of that period. Linda Blair, I'm not so sure about in this movie. I got a problem with her acting, especially in the later half of this movie when she's kind of like mugging it up.
Yeah,
and
she's
fucking-
hams it up a lot.
Yeah, the one-liners and her facial expressions are all over the place. Like, and that, I guess that's the kind of movie that it is, but it just gets a little ridiculous towards the end. But yeah, I get the impression of what you're saying is true though too. And depending on like what interview you go to, because there's several different ones she's done about this movie, she either says that she was fine with it and she doesn't understand why people have a problem with nudity, or she was fucking horrified by it. And like, so I don't know. Like, I don't know what her real
That's
opinion is.
interesting, because like all the guys were like super into it. Like any interviews I've seen from the guys, they were like, "Oh man, this was the best time ever." Like this was,
Yeah.
this is the high point of our careers. We love the film so much.
She had mentioned in that interview, like, just one thing that made it even more uncomfortable was like, I think it just felt really, really real to her, because they were so in character for that scene. Like, they just didn't let up. Like, I just think it was maybe just quite an uncomfortable scene for her, which
Yeah.
I mean, understandably, but
I got to imagine all these scenes would be uncomfortable for these people, like to a degree or another, like all of the ones we're talking about. Yeah.
But one thing I want to say is definitely grab the Blu-ray of this, because I initially had tried to watch this on streaming, and I don't know what's up with the version that was on Tubi, and there was it was on like Prime, other places, but the audio was totally screwed up. It's got a warble throughout the entire movie. The audio, the music, the dialogue, it like warbles. You know what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah.
pulsate. It's weird. That sucks. So I would not recommend anybody stream it.
Kind of like tin can-ish a little bit.
Yeah, and like the bass is like, the treble is kind of going up and down. I don't know what print all those places were using, but the Blu-ray looks great and it sounds great. But this is that code red, so it's still, I almost feel like could look even better.
I do too. Like, I've got the same disc. It's the same disc with just a slip cover on it, the code red one that I've got over here.
Yeah.
And I feel that way too. Like, it looks okay for a Blu-ray, but like, I
Yeah.
gotta feel like that they could do, like, if Vinegar Syndrome or somebody got a hold of it, or even Arrow, like, they could do a great job.
That'd probably be an instant sellout for Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah. I could see it happening too, because this is I don't see a date that this was released, this Blu-ray.
I think it was 2019.
I could see that being like a VSA.
19. Wow. Okay. I figured it was earlier than that. But yeah,
'Cause
definitely
I saw something about like, hold on,
could easily be like a VSU title, with a bit, the magnetic box and stuff like that. It would be maybe one of their best-selling titles ever. But yeah, it looks good on this, but it could look better. I could definitely see it looking better.
So on the back of this one that I've got, it's got HD master from the Interpositive with additional color correction done in 2019.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay. Yeah.
That's how I got that. But So we got another super chat real quick. Hold on. It is from one I haven't ever seen on here. Logan Hennessy, aka Horroraholic. I really want to buy a shit ton of movies. Should I go after classic slashers or giallos? Curious about your opinion. I love both. I can't. That's a tough question to answer unless I know like the kind of stuff that you're into, like movie wise, because like I giallos are a very specific kind of genre that I hesitate to like point people in that direction unless you've already seen some of them and you kind of feel like you like them or
Mm.
you like a certain type of movie because they're oftentimes slower than other films. They're mystery films. Like they're not your cut and run kind of slasher movies like your Friday the 13th. They're usually more like,
Procedural.
yeah, like thrillers, like there's a person you're supposed to figure out who it is by the end of it. So put it to you this way: if you like really quick, like 80s style gore movies and stuff like that, go with the slashers. If you like 70s style mystery,
Yeah,
like
murder mystery
kind of stuff, then go with the giallos. If you're gonna go with the giallos, then you got to start. If you've never seen any, you got to start with Argento, I think,
And
kind of work.
definitely, check out Arrow. Arrow has most of the
Oh yeah,
giallo
yeah.
titles that are really worth having for sure.
Yeah, those sets that they put out.
Yeah, the
Those are
giallo
probably
essentials.
yeah, that's a good
I've
one.
got a
Like
couple of these
entry
over
point.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those sets are still on sale at Barnes and Noble for like $40 a piece.
Yeah.
Nice.
Those would be if you're trying to like you're saying you're trying to buy like a bunch of movies. Yeah, those giallo essentials from Arrow, that
Oh,
would
here.
be worth it because most of the films in those sets are worth, especially the red and the yellow sets.
So
Yeah.
here's like the ones that we're talking about. This
Yeah.
is the blue one. I just got this one in, and then the red one.
I think that was the last one they did, right? The blue one.
Yeah.
I think so. And then there's a white one and a friggin' black one and everything in the world. But
And the
yeah.
artwork underneath the slip on those are all like fantastic. Like the yellow one is just awesome. That
So
artwork underneath.
yeah, basically, if you wanted to get a hold of a bunch of movies of one kind of genre really quickly, that'd be your best bet because you could probably get like all those box sets for right now, like $40 and maybe some under that too.
Yeah, I've seen them go for like 35 sometimes.
They will all go on sale. I would not spend $60 like their
No.
original. No, don't spend 60 on them. Just go to like Deep Discount or Hamilton Book or places like that, and you'll see them for $35-$40, and that's like the perfect price point for those.
Yeah. You could do what I'm doing, which is I'm trying to get every slasher film released by Vinegar Syndrome in their entirety.
Oh,
So
God.
just because I love shitty slasher films, so it's up to you. Like you decide like which way you want to go. But like, yeah, I think you could probably get more bang for your buck going with giallos because they're cheaper. Like you can get them together in a lot of these sets, like from Vinegar Syndrome and from Arrow, pretty goddamn cheap right now. Anyway, Savage Streets. It's one of my favorite exploitation films. Period. I don't of any kind of like subgenre of and I can't explain to you
Same.
why, but it is like
No,
I said.
you're not alone. I could talk about the movie all day. Like there's so many little things throughout the movie that just make it so much fun to watch. And I think that gang, like those characters are just you want to see what they're up to all the time. Like most of the time I don't even really care to see Linda Blair or her friends. I want to follow that gang. Like they're always up to something.
I do like the ending of that movie, like where the gang is chasing Linda Blair all throughout like that warehouse, and she's got like booby traps and
Right.
shit all throughout the place. I love that.
Yeah.
And she's got like all the one-liners and stuff like that too during that. So it's one of my favorite bits in that.
Yeah, it turns into like an Arnold movie or something there at the end where she's like, what is the line where she says, "Are you double jointed?" or something like that? Because
Yeah, so you
if you
kiss
were,
your own ass
Yeah,
goodbye.
bend over
yeah.
and kiss your ass goodbye. Yeah.
And then there's also the scene too, man, where she's like the bathtub scene. That's almost like that's all I'll say. If you've seen it, then you know. So there's a lot going on in this movie that's great. To me, it's like it's like the 80s exploitation film. Like everything from top to bottom, the sleazy direction, the music, the bad acting, the
The
over the top
atmosphere.
dialogue, the atmosphere, it's perfect in those ways. It is like a vengeance movie. I almost didn't include it because it's not the person that it happens to is not the one that goes for vengeance. It's her sister.
Mhm.
So I was looking at these movies as like, but that's also the same with Deliverance too. So I was like, fuck it. Might as well keep both of them in,
Yeah.
But yeah, Dana, talk to us about Savage Streets. I know you love this movie.
I do love this movie. And I'd have to agree with everything you guys have said about it. I mean, I think this one, other than Linda Blair's obvious over the top acting in some parts of it, still, regardless of that, I think it's a pretty flawless movie. And I think the first time, I'm just going to be totally honest, the first time I saw what happens to Linnea Quigley's character of Heather in this, I almost cried. Because it's like you guys said, they get, finished violating her severely, and then she gets kicked in the head. It's like, oh, you had to go there. You had to go in that direction. And I know it's not real, but it looks real enough that it just hurts to. And Linnea Quigley, this is probably the most innocent I've ever seen her in any movie. She's just this angelic, almost like a little girl. And I think that's because she can't talk, she can't hear. And it's almost like they're doing this to a child, which makes it all that much worse.
Yeah, she's very like tiny and frail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think they've got her dressed completely different than anybody else too. Like she's in the most conservative kind of like
Yes.
shit,
Mhm.
like almost like schoolgirl outfits or something like that. And they're dressed in like gang outfits or something like, just leather and stuff like that. It is quite the contrast. And I think that's why it works. But TJ also says that she's really good in this, mostly acting with expressions.
Mhm.
Jake says Savage Streets feels like Repo Man's sleazy uncle. I could see that. It is the most quotable film ever, too. You're a tough little bitch, aren't you? Like that, he says to a teenage girl. Talking about John Vernon. Fast Custom still sells the Go Fucking Iceberg shirt. If you want it, it's $10
Nice.
right now. Let's see. Steinman directed porn. Yeah, he definitely did that.
The one thing I would say about Savage Streets is that I watching it, I kind of wish that there was a bit more of the revenge aspect to it. Like I thought they could have done a bit more with Linda and her friends. Like I think it maybe I was kind of almost hoping that they would kind of get gang together, like her and the remaining girls, and kind of do a little bit more of a varied kind of kills. There's only what 3 or 4 guys that they have to deal with, but she kills the 2 guys with the crossbow. Well, the one guy
Yeah.
falls into the bear traps and stuff, but I was kind of almost hoping that there would have been a bit more like, catching them all on their own instead of, the 2 guys real quick, they're done in like one scene. And then the last guy is, the finale, which is a great kill. The last 2 movies we're talking about end with somebody being killed by being set on fire,
Yeah.
by the way.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of did wish that there was a bit more of the revenge aspect to it, but it's a more lighthearted, if you could say that about a movie of
It
this
is
style.
somehow like I don't know, yeah, exactly how it just comes off. I think it's just the fact that she's joking about it, and it's so kind of over the top that you don't ever take it seriously like these other films we've been talking about.
Almost kind of trauma-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one guy actually gets killed by the main gang leader, right? He gets hit by the car so he's not even like a part of the whole vengeance part of it.
Yeah.
So Point Break Keita says though that Striking Distance with Bruce Willis is an underrated giallo. I just wanted to bring up Point Break Ketis because that's an awesome reference. Jerry L says that Savage Streets is the epitome of a classic 80s midnight movie.
Yeah.
The 88 films release. I think you might be talking about another movie. I'm not covering any Cat 3 movies.
Steve might, though.
That does look like the same guy.
Yeah, I definitely think whatever you do next, Siege needs to be included because I want to talk about Siege. I love
Siege is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in particular, I found this out that said McCore says the mafia funded Savage Streets. Not just the mafia, but it was actually the guy Michael Francisi, who's on all those YouTube videos now, talking about he was one of the bosses, one of the main, I guess it was New York bosses at around the time when the five families and all that shit existed. He's doing like a bunch of YouTube videos now talking about his life, but he's actually represented in Goodfellas, and they actually name him specifically in that movie as being like, one of the mobsters. So he actually funded this movie. Well, his organization did, which I can absolutely believe considering like Danny Steinman's reputation.
I think I remember Lustig talking about that guy and just their business with. Well, I'm not going to say that on YouTube, but
yeah.
I think we all know all that stuff.
Any closing thoughts on Savage Streets other than the fact that it's fucking awesome, which it is?
No, love it. One of my favorites. Could watch it at any time.
This next one is a bit of a stretch too, to be honest. It is a Grape Revenge movie, but it's a cyborg Grape Revenge movie. So, I mean, it's completely unique in anything else that we've talked about. And I'd never seen it up until I got it was on sale in one of those Vinegar Syndrome sales about a year ago or so.
That's where I got it too.
Yeah.
It was $10.
I saw it for the first time ever today in preparation for this.
You know what though? It's made for cable and made for like home video, but it's not that bad. Like it's not horrible. It looks like it was made for cable, but it's Steel and Lace, which is 1990. The Silk Stockings of Grape Revenge movies, cyborg Grape Revenge movies. This one's a bit of a stretch, but I want to explain this plot because it's kind of funny. So, like with the rest of these, the main character has been assaulted, and the film starts off with the trial of the guy that supposedly assaulted her, and she is, with her brother, and her brother is like an AI scientist. They specifically say that he works for like NASA or something and creates like AI for them. And, the guy gets off. He doesn't get, indicted or anything like that for the murder, or not the murder, for the assault and all that. And she goes up on the top of a building and basically while her brother's kind of watching, like throws herself off the building and dies. And her brother decides, I'm head of AI for NASA. Like I'm going to design a killer cyborg whose sole purpose is to seek vengeance on all these guys that assaulted my sister. That's basically the plot of the movie. And, the early 90s, man, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a whole cyborg trend of TV shows and fucking movies. And I feel like this was trying to capitalize on that really short-lived trend of making this kind of movie. But it is unique and if you give it a chance, it's a pretty fun, stupid movie, really.
Yeah.
Probably the best kills out of any of these movies,
Yeah.
Probably over the top, I will say.
Yeah.
And
Great gore effects, practical.
Yeah, the guy that directed it, what's his
Ernest
name?
Farino.
Yeah, he was a special effects guy, so I mean that makes sense. Like
He worked with Cameron on Terminator.
yeah, he worked on Terminator. I made a list of stuff he worked on because it was amazing. He worked on Terminator, The Thing, The Abyss, Cyborg, like all kinds of as like in makeup and graphics and things like that. So that was kind of where he made his living. So yeah, I mean that part of it is really really good. Like there's a helicopter death scene that I think's better than Dawn of the Dead. It's the same
Yeah.
fucking thing,
Oh, yeah.
but I think it's pulled off better the way that it looks.
Yeah.
But in connection with that, I gotta bring this up. What the hell is Brian Backer doing in this movie? Like he's
That's-
the most unlikely person to be in this movie.
I mean, that's the whole cast, though. Like,
Yeah.
David Naughton,
was
I
gonna-
guess you
yeah.
could kind of see, but
Squiggy is in this movie from Laverne and Shirley.
Yep.
Bruce Davison.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other guy? Michael.
The dude from
Severus.
what was the one dude in that was like, wasn't he in like a Police Academy movie or something? One of the guys that assaulted her, I'm pretty sure, was in a Police Academy movie.
I think that was Brian Backer.
Is that who that is?
Wasn't he
Okay.
in Police Academy 4? I think it was 4.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So basically you've got, I think, what, 5 guys all in all that have something to do with this. And so there's the one main guy who was like, whose father owns like a real estate company, and he's got all this money so he can of course keep him from going to jail. And then he makes all the other guys that took part in this sexual assault partners with him because they didn't roll over on him. They form like this real estate company, and a couple years later, after the assault and everything, they're all partners, and she basically goes around like picking them off one by one, and that's the basic plot of the movie. But the way she goes about doing it, it's what's so fucking great, because she's a cyborg, but she's got all these built-in like RoboCop shit, like this motorized blade that comes out of her chest that saws through this guy. And the one scene where I was like, what the fuck, is the scene where she's like, the one guy's like having sex with her, and she's like, I want to take something like with me to remind me of you. It's apparently like a blade inside of her whatever, and just like lops off his
Yeah.
The only
Like a blender.
The only
Yeah.
other thing that made me go like, "What the hell?" was like where she was disguised as that agent, and then literally
Yes.
taking her shirt off, and then like shows her chest. The next thing, like boob pop out.
Yeah.
I was like, "What?"
Hey, and the what is the one scene too where, I mean, it's a pretty good effect, but you can clearly tell it. Does she hit a guy with a car or something, and his head is like in the brick, like behind?
Oh
Like,
no, she
you know what I mean?
grabs him.
That's
and,
right.
like,
She
basically
chokes
like,
his like
She
yeah,
melts his
pulls
neck.
his head off.
Yeah, and his
Mhm.
it's like his head's like coming out of this brick wall, but you can clearly kind of tell that it's like part the way they did the makeup effects and stuff. It's silly, man, and it's clearly like made for cable, and it's not like it has no emotional impact. Like to me, it had
No.
0 in terms of the rest of these movies at all. But basically, it's just an excuse to come up with creative like death scenes based around this kind of premise too.
Like if someone isn't really into the whole like grape revenge style of film, they're more into more lighthearted, fun, party type movies, this would be the one to watch that still kind of fits into that genre a little bit. So yeah, it's super fun. Yeah, I just actually, like Dana, that I watched it for the first time today as well. I'd had this Blu-ray since that sale, and figured, yeah, I need to watch it before this stream, obviously. So I think I want to watch it again, because I was kind of
Yeah.
doing a little bit of other stuff while I was watching it, and I liked it, and I think I just want to watch it with a little bit more focus to it. But the kills that's the standout of the movie. That's really all it is. Like
Yeah.
you said, it's the excuse for the funny, goofy, over the top kills, but with great special effects.
And I think it reminded me of like the look of it and the way that the effects were and stuff. Kind of reminded me of like the Brian Usna, Stuart Gordon stuff that came out
yeah.
like,
Yes.
around
very
that
much
period.
so.
Yeah. And so I kind of got nostalgic for that too. But it is it's a fun film. Like you should watch it with people. Probably it probably would have a better effect if you were like in a group of people too. Liked it a lot though. So that's Still in Lace from 1990. Not a lot else can be said about it really.
The ending was really abrupt and kind of
The
bleak.
ending was
Oh,
very
yeah.
abrupt. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I didn't expect that to happen. Like I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but that was certainly not what I expected at all. It was very, very abrupt and bleak.
You know,
Yeah.
I always like to, or I want to like Bruce Davison in movies, and I was kind of following along with him, but when he wanted his sister as the android to kill off the one girl that was doing the drawings and stuff, he was like,
Mhm.
kill them both. Kill them both. You know, I'm like, okay, that's where I was like, no, I can't follow Bruce Davison anymore in this movie because she was an innocent
You know
in
what's
all of
weird
Got to
that.
tie
though?
up those loose ends, Dana.
Yeah, you can't
No
have
witnesses.
that. What's weird to me about this movie though, in that regard with Bruce Davison is that that dude is good in everything I've ever seen him in.
Yeah, he
Like
is.
I've never seen him phone in a performance, and even in this where he probably should have fucking phoned it in, like he was really good. Like he was really believable. So any thoughts on Steel and Lace?
I'm kind of shocked that it's like a made for TV movie, you know, because
Or made for home video, or however
Okay.
that went in the 90s, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like a made for, like you said, it was made for TV, but I wasn't sure, like, because like thinking, did this air on television with all that gore in there like that?
No,
Like,
it aired
yeah,
on cable, if anything, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, it seems like a made for cable, like early 90s HBO late night movie or something.
Yeah, it's a 403 aspect too, so I know that it's not.
yeah,
It never went theatrical, or never had any intention of going theatrical, really. But it is midnight, so I guess I know everybody's probably got work tomorrow. I'll make the announcement while we still got about 90 people in here, so fuck it. Of who the interview is. I would say that the majority of people will not know this person by name, but I would say that probably the majority of people will know this person by a picture. So, without further ado, we have this interview. I don't know when CK's putting it up. If he's still fucking in here, he can tell me when he's putting it up. But I'll show you guys the picture, and you tell me if you have any kind of reaction to who this is.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
So-
interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking Fulci with one of the very few people that has ever been around Fulci or has any kind of experience in a Fulci film. Sylvia Calatina. And she was Mae Freudstein in, of course, the classic House by the Cemetery. And she's got some great stories working as a child actor with Fulci, which you can
Yeah.
imagine what that would be. And I saw an interview with her that was on the House by the Cemetery disc. It's like 12 minutes long. Our interview will probably be, when it's edited, about 45 minutes long. So, I mean, we're going into some detail about a lot of cool stuff with Fulci and a lot of with her career and stuff as well. And she's probably one of the most fun interviews we've done in a long time because she's a horror fan for real, and she collects skulls and
Oh.
like, I mean, she's legitimately like into the genre, and also is lives in Rome, Italy. So there's no reason why we should be talking to her, but we did, and it's
Yeah.
awesome. So check that out. Coming up soon, probably this week, I would say it'll drop.
It's
Very
killer.
cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I've been following her on Facebook for a while, so that's cool.
She did not like Bob's dub voice, and I don't think anybody does. For that, if you want to I can just go ahead and answer that question for you. So that's it for tonight, guys. If anybody has anything that they want to talk about, like shows coming up, or you want to brag about your shit, or I don't care, whatever you want to talk about, now'd be the time to do it.
I do have a question. For the next one, do you have an idea of a theme?
No, I do
Hmm.
not. I do not think that far ahead in life, unfortunately. But there's like a million different like
Oh yeah.
options. So underneath the anybody in the chat or anybody in here, underneath the Exploitnation thread on Discord, if you want to like pop in some ideas, like I'm open to suggestion.
Okay.
Just see what everybody has to say.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like I said, if you're going to include something like Siege, maybe like, I don't know what like, would that can be considered like invasion type of home
Yeah,
invasion
it
almost?
whatever the fuck Assault on Precinct 13 is, Siege is too.
Yeah,
Like I don't know what you would call that style of movie,
like
but
invasion, survival, people being hunted
yeah,
kind of
people
thing.
in like a one spot being well, we could call them siege films. That's basically what they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be cool.
that is a good idea. Dana, what do you got going on? I
Well,
know you probably got a calendar full of shit. Like, go ahead.
well, I do kind of have a calendar of watch-alongs, but I won't go over all those. But I do have a couple of new streams that I've been doing for a couple of weeks now. Stephen's Kingdom is one that I do on Monday nights, where I cover 3 Stephen King adaptations a night, and I'm going in order. I'm going to cover everything. Yes, Uncle Bill, even that I'm going to get to that Shining miniseries.
Oh shit.
So,
I'm sorry, Dana.
so I'm covering everything. And then Tuesday nights, I'm doing Everybody Wants England. And I've been covering 3 Robert England films a night. And I started from the very beginning with the first film he was ever in called Buster and Billy. And I'm just going from there, covering 3 of his films a night. So that's the big things.
Kick ass, Dana.
Cool.
Mark, you got anything going on?
Just more collection video stuff as always.
Trying to put everybody to
I'm-
shame as usual.
I'm upset about the high tension release you said is not good. I just got
Well,
that in.
listen,
I got
listen.
that, and then I got Inside.
Me and
But-
Garrett were talking about this. It's all
Mhm.
about like whatever the TV is, man. Honestly,
Oh,
like with
okay.
a lot of these 4Ks, like it's how the TV is calibrated, like whatever setting you got it on. Like for my taste, like I thought it was way too fucking dark. I know this is something that people have talked about, and I was like, well, surely not. Like it'll be, fine. But to me, it wasn't. It was too fucking dark. But so you watch it and tell me what you think.
Oh yeah, I'll probably pop it in right after this.
Yeah.
One more question though. Anybody else get their VS stuff?
No.
Nope.
Okay, I
As
thought
a
it was
matter
just
of
me.
fact,
Okay.
yeah, still got like 3 separate orders that were supposed to be, put together from that
Same.
week long.
I got like 6 orders and they haven't shipped anything. So I
Yeah,
don't know
I
what
haven't heard
is going
shit.
on.
Only thing I got from that entire thing, which wasn't even on sale, was Existence, and I got that title in, but I didn't end up. I don't think I ordered anything else when they had that sale.
I think their whole thing wasn't it like all the subscribers get their shit first, and then like the next people, and then like. So I don't know if like that's what's taking so long, or because so many people bought shit from that sale. I'm not sure, but it's getting pretty ridiculous at this point. Yeah. But no, I haven't heard anything from them. So Radkins, Matt, y'all got anything?
Nah, man. Just watching movies whenever I can, pretty much.
Same.
Yeah, really just trying to still always on that endless chasing my watch pile, trying to get everything in. But yeah, one thing I wanted to mention was UB. I sent you the trailer for it on
I watched it.
Discord.
Handgun.
Handgun.
Yeah.
So it's a title that's coming out from Fun City Editions.
I couldn't find it though. Like I couldn't find anywhere to buy. Is it not on sale yet or anything?
It is, yeah. I think Orbit has it for pre-order. There's a couple places that have it for pre-order right now.
Okay, I just went to Fun City, and I assume Vinegar Syndrome would have them as a partner, but they weren't.
No,
they
yeah,
did, but not as that.
it's not on Vinegar anymore. They don't do new releases with Vinegar Syndrome anymore. They have their own website, Fun City Editions. You could probably get it on there. But yeah, so like it's kind of in the realm of what we're talking about with this show, with the Grape Revenge, Assault Revenge
Yeah,
kind of movies. I've never seen it, but it looks like it may be like a made for cable type movie as well, based on the trailer. But it's called Deep in the Heart, aka Handgun, from 1983. So if anybody wants to check out that trailer that they put out on YouTube, I think it looks cool. I think it
looks like something that's right up the alley of these type of films.
Yeah. I'm very interested in that. I'll definitely be picking that one up, so I can watch it for the first time on that release. But yeah, the trailer was cool to me, especially when she gets into the, learning how to use the gun and finally goes on her rampage or whatever she does. But yeah, that one looks cool. So if you like these types of movies, that might be one for people to check out. Might be a new one for most people, I feel like.
Yeah, and like you were saying, if anybody on here like wants a cool vengeance kind of Home Alone vibe film, Siege is a great Canadian film that Severin put out. That's
good
in the style of like Assault on Precinct 13 as well. But yeah, so I don't know what the theme will be next week. I wish I did. I know that we got a killer interview coming up in the next week or so. So we got that to look forward to. I'll figure out a theme. Go over to the Discord, drop it in there. Go to Dead Pit on Patreon, deadpit.com, shop.deadpit.com, Dead Pit on Instagram, Into the Dead Pit, I think it's called. And go visit Daner's page and Mark's page and everybody else's page and spread the joy and love from the horror community that we all care so much about. And until next time, I don't have a catchy send-off, so I'll just say bye. See y'all later.
Bye.
Hi, y'all.
Everybody.
Give us the thumbs up,
Up you butt.
like, subscribe. And if you subscribe, here's something else you can do. Once you subscribe, you can click the bell notification, right? And it'll notify you anytime that Dead Pit puts up new shit.
Or don't. I really don't give a fuck.
I want you to. I want you to.
I don't care.
Let's keep our community growing here on YouTube.
I don't like it. I don't want you to do nothing.
Listen, they need to do that.
No, don't you dare touch it.
Thumbs up. Subscribe. And click that bell.
There's all kinds of wonderful shirts over at shop.deadpit.com. Simply the best horror shirts. On TeePublic, there are others, but they all suck. You can get some Dead Pit Radio shirts. You can get Last South on the left. The Hills Have Eyes. Texas Chainsaw. Oh, wait, you can't say Texas Chainsaw. All kinds of shirts, folks. You're gonna love them. Shop.deadpit.com.
Thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. Dead Pit on Patreon.com is the only place to check out a complete archive of the old Dead Pit radio shows all the way back from 2005 on, in addition to the midweek shows, fan commentaries, exclusive podcasts, and much more. Dead Pit on Patreon.com if you're interested. Tiers start at only $1.
We ain't